Good morning, guys, and welcome to Unique Not Different with me, Shamla. And today I have Ms. Qushiba La Fleur, who is the CEO and founder of the Deaf Support Net. We Care Deaf Support Network. And I also have interpreting is Miss Letitia Street. So good morning, Qushiba. How are you doing?
I'm good. I'm good. Thanks for having me on the program.
My pleasure. So your network is when registered the only network that supports parents of persons or children of deaf and hard of hearing in population, right? So what inspired this?
I'm a parent of a deaf child. My son, he was born deaf. I found out he was deaf at 3. And when we found out that he was deaf, there wasn't any information or resources available for me to work with. So I didn't really know where to go or what to do when I found out my son was deaf. And throughout the process of him trying to get him even into school, I think I was recommended to a number of different schools until somebody told me about Cascade School for the Deaf. And he was almost 6 years when we started Cascade School for the Deaf. That took us a couple of years before doing regular preschool.
Mhm.
And at Cascade, I met other parents who had the same challenges that I did. Throughout us becoming advocates at the time, I thought in 2013 we needed to start something because we had a parent support group at Cascade, but we needed to do something beyond just a parent support group and, do something more for parents. So I registered the organization and to be the support for parents of deaf and hard of hearing children.
So
And as a peer now,
and I know, okay, so it's targeted towards parents, right? So what is the purpose in terms of like information? Is it advocacy? Is it awareness? Like, yeah, what's the purpose of Wicked?
well, we provide a number of different services. At the beginning, when we registered, it was just basic to raising awareness, advocating for the rights of the deaf and hard of hearing persons, especially that of education. But as we went along, we realized that the same challenges I had as a parent, other parents were still having the same challenges. So we started providing additional support services. We provide psychosocial support, we provide early intervention programs. Early intervention is when a child is diagnosed. We support the parents and the child by helping that go into the homes, teach sign language, get the parents to understand, how do you communicate and how do you navigate your child being with a deaf, having a deaf child, I should say. So that's part of it. We provide sign language training for parents of deaf and hard of hearing children and parents who are nonverbal. We do hearing screening. It's something that we do as a fundraiser. I do consultancy and advocacy training as well with some other organizations and as part of the network. So we have a number of services. We provide support for deaf people as well as youths. We're working along with other organizations to provide support services and education for deaf youths so that they can have a better quality of life. And currently, we're trying to network with Servworld to have an early intervention, early childhood setup where we can have parents access different Servworld centers so that their child could have that early access to education before attending Cascade or Judapur School for the Deaf, which are the primary schools.
When answering this question, right? You mentioned that, parents, you notice parents have, I guess, overarching concern or similar concern, right? What would you say is the most common concern parents of deaf and hard of children have, especially early intervention? And what you think can be done in order to alleviate this and get not only, yes, they are fine in going to Cascade School of the Deaf, but integrating them into mainstream school at an early age.
The thing is, with education of a deaf child, so one of the challenges parents have, and it continues to be a challenge, is early intervention, which is one that's part of what we're trying to fix or plug to be a support in that area, and accessing early childhood education. That is a huge challenge because when a child is born deaf, from 0 to 5, only the parents can support that child. And if the parent is not sign language literate or doesn't have knowledge or an understanding of deaf culture, that child is left there in the home and basic things happen, but nothing really happens academically to motivate or stimulate that child's mind. So we need the access to childhood education, and that's one of the biggest challenges. Like I said, we have been trying to communicate with Serval, and I've been talking to a few people who we're trying to work on getting at least some support in that area where parents would have opportunities to take their children to different Serval Life centers. However, it requires training for tutors who would be able to administer the lessons in sign language. The thing is, people do not understand the education of a deaf child is different from that of children who are hearing. And though we talk about mainstream education is not going to provide a deaf child with the type of support they need in the classroom, which requires them to learn in their first language, which is sign language. So mainstream sounds really well. However, it's challenging once a child is not being taught in their first language, which is sign language. So there would need to be a lot of additional support services and persons like Letitia and other people in the classroom once we're mainstreaming children, which we only have a limited support of that in Trinidad.
Right, and this question leads me to, I read that you had a march in 2018, right?
Yeah,
can you let us know a little bit about that march? It was, I think, the first of its kind.
Well, what we did, we started advocating for the rights of deaf people in many different areas. It's a human rights thing. And from me doing my research and having the support of other people who are academics, educators, and supporters as well of the deaf, in us doing the research, in around that time, the UNCRPD was launched, and part of that was making sure that deaf persons were provided access to information in their language. And I think it's Article 24 when it comes to education, it speaks of that. And we, in 2013-14, we decided to do the first march, and in 2018, we just continued doing what we were doing from that time to now, where we continued marching, have access to the rights for deaf persons, especially when it comes to education, because once a child is not educated, and that doesn't mean just going in a classroom and sitting, but once a child lacks that education, then development and access to other things, jobs, doing your own business, all those things are limited. So the march was for that purpose, for us to actually raise awareness about deafness and have people understand more what some of their challenges were, but not just challenges, but help you understand as well. These are some of the things that we can do to help mitigate some of the challenges that deaf people have.
And person reach out to your network.
So we're on Facebook and on Instagram, so they can send us direct messages there. They can also call 774-2864. The number is 774-2864. They can WhatsApp us, or they could send us, they could call, and they can also email us at WeCareD as in deaf, S as in support, N as in network at gmail.com. So that's WeCareDSN@gmail.com.
And any advice, last advice will you give the parents or new parents of persons or children of deaf that are deaf or hard of hearing?
One of the things that I always say, and I would constantly keep saying, is that parents need to learn to communicate with their children. So learn to sign. That's very important. There are a number of organizations that teach sign language classes. Learn to sign. You can contact us as a support network for parents of deaf and hard of hearing children, and we will contact you to the right resources or the support personnel. But learn to sign, because if you do not know how to communicate with your child, then you cannot expect anybody else to communicate with your child for you. So it's really important that parents of children who are deaf, children who are hard of hearing, learn to sign, and also join a support network like ours, or get in touch with the school so that you'll have other parents that you can work along to understand some of the challenges you may be having, because we've all been through a lot, and sometimes we think our challenge is unique when somebody already navigate that system and can share with you how to get through that.
Qushiba, I want to say thank you so much for coming. Thank you so much for your work, and thank you so much for just pushing yourself and doing what you do. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Shamla, for having us. Thanks a lot for that.
It's my pleasure, and Letitia, thank you for interpreting today. And guys, with that being said, I want to say thank you so much for tuning into this week's segment. of unique and different. As I always say, be good. Bye, guys.
Bye.